Welcome to Sister Talk TV show. Hi, everybody. It's a nice day today. It is July 28th. Can you believe July 28th, 2018? Can you believe how time flies? Summer is almost gone and fall is here. Before you know it, we will be shopping for Christmas, having Thanksgiving and the Black Fridays. But hey, I am so happy that you're here. Tune in because I have a special show today. I have my Afro Latina sisters. Yay! Give them, hey, yay! Thank you. You can sit back down. Now, all the way over to my right is Dronell Gerardo. She's a computer and she's a copywriter and content marketing expert. Thank you for coming to Sistah Talk TV. And sitting next to Dronell is Carmen Rodriguez, immigration attorney for the Bronx Defenders. Very good organization. I worked there many moons ago. Very good. I love what they do for the community and abroad. And sitting next to Carmen is my girl, Dinah Ortiz. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
It's my sister friend. Sister friend, I tell you, she's an you're a parent advocate,
yes.
Supervisor.
Yes,
you are
yes.
a parent advocate. Thank you for coming to Sistah Talk TV show. And like I said, we are going to talk about this immigration situation. You know, this immigration problem, or is there a immigration problem? We will see. But first, I wanted to talk to you all about what does it mean to be an Afro Latino? Are you Afro Latinx, I should say?
Yeah.
Before I start that. But if you are or if you're not, what is it? What does it mean to be that Afro Latinx?
Latinx, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone here, and everybody can definitely, kind of decide what it means to them. But for me, I spent a long time not embracing my African American culture and heritage, because growing up, the stigma of being Black and having Black skin was just so embedded in our community and in our families, and even in Latino families. And so I wanted to be able to embrace the entire aspect of being Puerto Rican and Afro Latina, which means embracing, my African American brothers and sisters, my culture, my bloodline, all of that. So that's what really it means for me.
Okay, what about you?
I mean, I don't particularly adopt the Afro-Latina identity. I don't disregard it out either. I identify as Puerto Rican, and that comes with a mix of acknowledging that we have Black heritage, we have Taino heritage, and we have European heritage, and our dignity is in embracing all of that.
How about yourself?
I definitely had a similar experience to Dinah in terms of I'm Dominican, and so growing up, I always felt like I was kind of between worlds where I grew up in a predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhood, but I also kind of really understood, I guess, white culture just from seeing it on TV and the media, and so it was always I felt like there were a number of worlds that I was living in.
Of worlds?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, because I also, I went to a predominantly white college, and so it was, I always felt like I could fit into a different, few spaces, and really being able to kind of blend those together for me was being really identifying as, Afro Latinx, because I understood that Afrocentricity is still very part of my identity, but I'm still very American. Whatever that means.
So you don't put yourself in a box.
Yeah.
So is there any challenges that you all face in the community, being that you're, let's say Latino for right now? I know it's Latinx. Is there any challenges that you all face? You consider yourself Afro-Latino.
Yes.
You consider yourself Latino. You consider yourself Afro-Latino. Is there challenges within the Latino community?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, absolutely. There are challenges that we have to battle within our own community. As I said, the reason why I embraced that title now is because of the fact that I was brought up by, a father who used to tell me, I don't want you to bring a black man to my home, and I'm like, well, you forgot what color skin I am, right? So
was your father real light skin? Or
he was, he was
white?
fair. He was fair skinned, and my sister right above me and myself are the darkest ones. And so for me, that was like, it gave me kind of shame of the color of my skin. It took me a long time for me to embrace my skin color. And, then once I did, it was just like, watch out now.
Watch out. Hey, remember, I forgot to mention this. Remember, you all can call in 212-757-1393, 212-757-1393. Chime in, comment, or ask a question. How about yourself? You consider yourself Latinx, but I've met people, your complexion, that consider themselves white Puerto Rican. You don't?
No, I would never say that. I think that in Puerto Rico there is a struggle of identity in terms of identifying ourselves by race, because we so identify by having a sort of mixed heritage, and it's so confusing. And I remember years ago there was problems in the census because we had to check boxes.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that. Yeah.
And it's like, well, what am I? I don't know. Is it a term of shade? But then you look at features on a person's face, and it's always the struggle of, am I black enough? Am I white enough?
So,
what am I?
But if you're in Puerto Rico, you're considered white.
I'm considered fair skinned. I don't think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Puerto Rico, there's such a panoply of colors. So we do have blonde, blue-eyed people and ginger skin, and so. I would say, and also I've been in New York a while, so I'm not tan enough right now. But my normal shade is much darker.
Because of the winter.
How about you, Ben? Were you raised here, or were you raised in?
I was raised here. Yeah.
So when you visit Dominican Republic, how is it?
That's a good question. I mean,
Are you considered white? I'm fascinated with this because Haiti is right beside the country, and so the city of whatever. So I'm just thinking, is somebody as fair as you, and would you be considered white? Okay.
I think I feel as though, like, with my complexion now, I probably would be. They'd probably they definitely would take note of the fact that I'm very light skinned. If it's with a lot more sun, obviously it would be like morena, which is more of like that more caramel skinned kind of tone. But they would probably say, you're on the pale side.
It's so interesting because once upon a time, and it probably still is, there was a color thing going on amongst African American. If you were darker than a paper brown bag, get out. If you were brown, stick around. If you're white, you're all right. Stuff like that. So I forgot how it goes, but somebody out there knows it. 212-757-1393. Call the show. 212-757-1393. The lower thirds are not up. That's why I am saying it like that. So you all can call the show. So we're going to just move on. Let's go into immigration. America has an immigration problem, or they think they have an immigration problem. What do you all think? I mean, we have this fascination right now for Latinx people. That are coming across the border, south of the border. We're talking about really Mexico. This administration is really focused on Mexico, but we're looking at Ecuador, or Guatemala. Why do you all think this is happening? Why? Because this has been going on for a while. There hasn't been such an outrage, and all of a sudden, boom, this is happening. Why do you think that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think looking at just what's happening in the media in terms of what we see, I think we're seeing a lot more like people of color really embracing their heritage and embracing their own just background and history. And I think I think in terms of American history, that's threatening. I think it poses a very big kind of challenge to this idea, the society that we've built in, where it's like, we've seen lighter skinned or white people, European standards be, you know, what's most celebrated. And I think, you know, in terms of where we're kind of going, what it's looking like, I think that's
you think that's it?
In terms of what I see for media, I would say that you know, the correlation seems to tie in.
So how about you all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the premise that there's an immigration problem doesn't acknowledge the fact that it's an immigration policy problem. Immigration is an inherent part of America. And people are focusing now because you have an administration that is very vocal about that as an issue, and it's had an impact in destabilizing a lot of communities, and creating a sense of fear. And you know, right now with the separation of families that people are focusing on, that is happening at the border, but it's also happening throughout the nation, and it's been happening for decades. And it's not only in immigration that it occurs, but it is an inherent part of immigration policy in America, is separating families.
Yeah, but it seems like it's, you know, it's being, this rule is being forced. You know, people are just jumping on the bandwagon, and people, you know, your language you speak and what have you, they're starting fights, they're telling on people and all that. For instance, this guy, Pablo Villavicencio.
Yeah.
I got it. I know.
Pablo, we got you.
Yeah, you got you. You know, he was arrested. You know, he was arrested while he was delivering pizza at a Brooklyn Army base, and he's been doing that for quite some time. You know, so I found that was interesting. All of a sudden, they're going to turn him in. That's what I'm saying. People are telling on the, you know, on their neighbors and their co-workers and what have you. And so, but he finally was released.
Yes, he was. And it's an absurd and very worrying situation that you would have someone with no criminal history who's doing a job, who is just making ends meet as would any person in this country, and then you subject him to being detained for mere paperlessness. And that's the issue. I think the statistics are that very few percentage, like about 5% of all new cases that are coming in are related to crime.
5%.
And so you have over 200,000 people initiating these deportation proceedings who are there just because they don't have papers. And that's a very unfortunate scenario.
Yes, yes. So what do you think about these children that are being taken away from the border? Now, okay, I looked at the news the other day and I read that almost 2,000 has been placed with their parents. I don't believe that number is correct. For some reason, I just don't believe that. But there are 400 others that they can't find or that are lost in the system. So what's going to, can you all, I mean, the immigration lawyer, parent advocate, what have you, social media, I know you're on this. What do you see happening? Do you see any justice? Do you see these parents reuniting with their children?
So the thing is that with this administration, what they were doing was, this wasn't about immigration policy for them. This was about taking punitive measures to punish poor people and people of color, right? Like poor people of color. And so, because had these been families from Switzerland, they would not have been ripping their children from their arms at the border, right? They wouldn't have been doing that. And so because it's brown people that are coming, and they don't think that brown people are capable of nurturing and loving their children as white people would, right? So it's nothing to them to kind of snatch their children from them and then, you know, send them to an unknown facility for God knows how long. I was watching the other day the news, and they were talking about that there's still almost 1,000 parents and children that have not been reunited, and yet this administration is touting that they've met the deadline. I don't understand what deadline they've met.
Yeah, I think right now it's about over 700 children that have yet been reunited with their parents, and the administration has said that, you know, some of them are parents who have already been deported.
Right, yes, I read that too. So, you know, I did a show a couple of Saturdays ago. It was a solo show, you know, and it was when it was first revealed that these children were missing and the United States did not know where they were. But I said that and somebody corrected me, but I said that the same thing is happening to the black and brown babies here in the United States, and nobody said anything. So what do you all say about that? I mean, should we be focusing all, it seems, it appears, social media content person, it appears that all the focus is on the children that have crossed the border with their parents. I'm just asking, you know, should we be focused all energy on that, or should we be concentrating on what's happening here? I'm just being real, and I'm just hearing what's out there.
So they're not mutually exclusive. Whenever you rip a child from their parents' arms, it's horrible, right? It is horrible what's happening at the border. It's absolutely horrific. It is also equally absolutely horrific what is happening here in our own backyards to families of color. And in this case, you know, when it comes down to the Administration for Children, Children's Services, where they portray themselves as this administration that is out to protect children, but really what they're doing is they're tearing up, you know, black and brown families and doing exactly the same thing that ICE is doing at the border. So it's really ironic to me when you see the march and the protest for the, you know, border separation, and then you see ACS workers marching for the family, you know, the border separation, and then they go to work the next day to go rip families apart here in you know, New York.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. That I met a guy a couple of weeks ago in church. In church, and he was trying to get his child back. And his child was missing for 5 years, and he and his wife, or the mother of his child, they went through some drug things, stuff like that. But now they're okay. They want their kid back, but their child has been adopted. Do you think there's any chance of that man getting their child back? No.
I mean, to overturn an adoption, I'm not an attorney, so I don't even want to speak on that. I mean, that's just horrible, right?
How you think so? Yeah.
I'm not a family attorney, so I wouldn't know exactly. But I do feel that the odds would be.
It's very difficult to overturn an adoption. I mean, they have to really just, you know, show cause as to why. And I mean, they have to reach back out, because I'm sure at some point in time they had an attorney on their case. They both had their own individual attorneys, so they need to reach back out to those attorneys and see what their options are.
I don't think he's going to get them either.
I think it's interesting though, because just following the conversation, it sounds like it's more so like it's not just immigration. It sounds like we're destabilizing like families in general,
that's what
you know? And it sounds like a much larger issue in terms of like we're actually going into communities that have a structure, you know, that have this sort of like foundation, and then we're breaking them apart, whether they're here at home with our own like people of color, or if they're people coming over the border who I'm assuming are coming for a better opportunity, who are coming to probably provide for their child, and who may not be able to do that from
So we're taking the children.
away.
So I don't. That's what I just don't understand. You know, the immigrants, children, and the people here. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. Also, because a social worker corrected me, I felt like the children here are being lost in the system. And she was like, no, they're not being lost in the system. They are being taken away from their parents because they are on drugs, because the relatives won't take them, because they're mentally incapable of doing that. You don't think so?
So here, what happens, you're not wrong. They are being lost to the system. You're absolutely correct. And so, if, let's just say, for example, that a parent is using illegal substances, right? Does that mean that they should lose their rights to their children? You know, white people use drugs every single day, but they don't get their kids taken away from them. And so, if they were to actually apply the law equally and fairly across the board, I mean, then we would really have nothing to talk about. But, you know, you have families in the Upper West Side that are, you know, using in the comfort of their home. The only difference here is that our clients or the people that we represent and that we're talking about are poor, and they have nowhere to go, and no support system and no support network. And if you talk about mental health services, the services that they're offered in the Bronx are horrible, right? So like, you know, people that have money, that are more fortunate, are able to get better services, but poor people of color get their children removed.
I think this is also an issue about considering what your privilege is when you are looking at a parent and judging them for what they do, because the same issue is happening now where they have parents coming at the border with their children, and people are giving the whole judgment that why would you put your kid through that?
Okay. If you want to chime in, please, 212-757-1393. 212-757-1393. 1393. If you have any questions about the immigration issue that we're talking about, children being snatched away from their parents across the border or within the border, 212-757-1393. We are here for you. Yes, I just thought that was just so interesting, what's going on with the immigration and all of that. Again, I'm just trying to figure out why this administration is so bent on taking the children. Somebody told me to follow the money. Taking the kids away. And then you look at the news, they're into these agencies, these adoption agencies and so forth.
Foster care agencies.
And so there's a lot of money.
But isn't it crazy that you would have a conservative administration where the whole center of the conservative policy is the dissolution of family values, right? And that you would have enforcement that is basically just tasked with ripping families apart. And that's the essential problem of this, that you don't have a policy that is consistent with what you want to do. You need to preserve the family unity, whether it's in immigration or whether it's in child welfare. The amount of money that gets spent in having children in foster care and inappropriate homes, when the government is thinking that they can be the proper caretakers of these children. These children are going through trauma because of the government actions, when they could just enable parents to be better at what they're doing and preserve that family unity.
Do you all think that there is an immigration problem? Do you think that, you don't think so?
No, I don't think there's an immigration problem. It's just only in the United States of America. This country is such a racist country, right? And so hence there's an immigration problem for them. And the minute that they start labeling and kind of throwing out these like names to vilify people, right? They're immigrants, they're aliens, they're human beings. And they would not be labeled in that manner if they were from a different complexion or a different skin color. It's only like, you heard this administration in 45 say, one of his pitch lines when he was running for president was that, Mexicans were rapists and murderers and drug dealers, right? He doesn't talk about the drug dealers and the rapists and murderers at Yale University or Harvard, or all of the mass murders that have happened, the school shootings from white people, right? They don't discuss that, but when it comes down to people of color, they're rapists and murderers and drug dealers.
But that's a mental health issue.
Yeah, exactly.
212-757-1393. I know it's a nice day out there, but I know you have your iPhones. I have a dumb phone. That smartphone, I have a dumb phone. I'm trying to upgrade to the smartphone, but it costs too much. It's like $600, $700 and stuff like that. Yeah, we're going to take a video break. Is the video ready? No. Okay, till the video is ready, we're going to continue to go ahead and talk about that and everything. Let's talk about Puerto Rico. What's happening is ready now? Okay. We'll be right back as soon as after the video. Oh, it's not the one. That's not the one. Let's talk about Puerto Rico. Oh, wow, that's something else. How is it? Is it still in dire need right now? Because when I see the commercial, come visit Puerto Rico, everything is okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that everything is okay. A lot of the power grid has been restabilized, but me calling my family in Puerto Rico every week, the telephone communication is terrible.
I do want to say that Puerto Rico, they're not a bunch of immigrants. They are part of the Commonwealth of the United States. Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so phone calls are getting cut off. There's a lot of problems with infrastructure. that are still not being corrected, roads that are still inaccessible.
Really? Wow.
I just visited there last January, and you could still see on the highways just billboards that were propped up on houses because they had been completely ripped off.
Wow.
And it felt insane, and that was, you know, a while after.
So how did your relatives feel about Trump coming over there, throwing paper towels like it was some type of game show?
I mean,
Or did they just, you know, they could,
I mean,
every day you wake up, it's something else
it's
going
insane that you could have a real housewife doing more for Puerto Rico than the president would do, because I know that there was one who was amongst the first landing there with a bunch of supplies.
Okay, so I think the video's ready now? Okay. We're still having technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. But still, you can call the show, 212-757-1393, 212-757-1393. I want my viewers to get to know you all. Let's start with you, Dranelle.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a content specialist, marketing. Tell me, what do you do? What do you tell us what that is, and what do you do? I'm still kind of confused about that.
Yeah. So I mainly help creative entrepreneurs, female writers, filmmakers, and designers of color really take their natural gifts and talents, monetize them, and create the life of their dreams. That's really important to me because I just feel that when it comes to stories of color, when it comes to creators of color, the opportunities that have been available have been very slim in the past, and now we're seeing women like Issa Rae come into you know, become big in Hollywood. We're seeing, like, you know, the Ava DuVernays, of the world, and it's just so important to get more stories of color, you know, really telling our experiences out there. And so I help in terms of the marketing, the sales. What does it look like to you know, to create your voice and build your business?
So it's really women of color that you target.
Yeah,
Okay, we have to talk.
So, and really just making sure that it's like, you know, I've got this vision. How do you do that? How do you get into production? You know, where do you get the money from? And just hustling, you know, just
we got to talk,
hustling.
baby. We got okay, Carmen, you're an immigration lawyer.
Yes.
So I know you have some, you know, really interesting clients. I know you can't talk about them.
Well, of course, I can share just some anecdotes, but I've been working for over a year with the New York Immigrant Family Unity Project, which is a very unique program that exists in New York City that offers free legal representation for immigrants who are facing deportation, indigent immigrants who are facing deportation. And it's a very amazing, eye-opening experience. A lot of people don't understand that deportation proceedings don't offer the people who are confronting them a right to counsel. And so people throughout the entire nation are facing having to leave their families, having to leave their property, everything, to potentially go into countries that they have known only since they were like very young, or countries that are dangerous.
Right.
And immigration law is hard. And it is insane that you would have someone suffer all those consequences without having someone there to explain them what their opportunities are. And so being a part of that is just amazing.
Dana Ortiz, Bronx Defenders.
Yes.
Yes, that's a great organization.
Yes.
All of you, what you're doing is great, but I know personally Bronx Defenders is a great organization. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, and we're both from the Bronx Defenders, and I'm a parent advocate supervisor. I have been at the Bronx Defenders for almost 7 years, and basically I work within the family defense practice, and we represent parents that are alleged to have either neglected or abused their children, which is a very broad term, and so we represent those parents only, we don't represent children, and it's basically just kind of helping, you know, poor people and marginalized people, you know, keep their children and their family units intact.
So how do you all got into this occupation that you're all doing? This, you know, humanitarian occupation, I should say. You could.
Yeah, I can. I used to be a waitress in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And I had a lot of immigrant coworkers, and we were working under not great conditions. And it was, for me, I wondered why they didn't step up for their rights as I felt I could.
Right.
And there was so much that I didn't know. And so I decided to study law just to know what rights we could all invoke to have a better situation in the workplace. And there I found out that, you know, there's so many issues that immigrants are involved with in trafficking and labor exploitation. And I got involved in that, and
the rest is history.
And the rest is history, yes.
Dinah.
I mean, I am, you know, I'm considered a person affected. I've been affected by the criminal justice system as well as the child welfare. So this is a, you know, my job is near and dear to me. It's very important to me. I fight for the families that I represent as if they were my own families. And yeah, you're on my social media, so you see how intense it is. You know, and so basically because of my own personal experience, that kind of just led me to this work and to the right people to kind of guide me in this work, and this is something that I'll do for the rest of my life.
And the content used?
Yeah, so for me it was really just growing up in the neighborhood, kind of seeing I think it was mainly just seeing how arts programs were always cut. You know, it was like,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, when in my community, like you'd have a theater program one year, and then the next year it was gone because there's no funding. You're like, you have all these really talented people, and they can't do what they love. And so it was, for me, it was really like experiencing it and seeing it, and being creative myself, and kind of feeling like there had to be that like release for the community.
Okay. Okay, now the video is ready, and we will be right back with my Afro Latinx sisters.
You have any questions? No, I love it. Yeah. Ready? Yeah. Let's create your own sentence. Create your own sentence. Okay.
Ay, baila, 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 ya. Si te quieres gozar. Hay fuego en la teta.
A little fierce.
Baila, baila, baila,
Eso. There you go.
hay que gozar, hay que gozar. Hay fuego en la teta.
I feel good. Yes, I love it.
Hay fuego, fuego, gitana.
So this is good for your arms. Yeah, it's good for your arms. This is better than lifting weight. Now you can do it with your legs.
Baila, 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 bucana.
That's why
Hay
that thing was
fuego
fine.
en la teta.
1, 2,
Ay, baila, baila, bucana.
1, 2,
Hay fuego en la
4. Now
teta.
pass. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and baby step.
Ya, ya.
Ready with the pause? Woo! Forward.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So let it, why don't you try that one? your steps. Baby steps forward. Da, 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 da. 1, Uh-huh. 2, 3, 4. 1. Da, 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 da.
There you go. Let it go. Let it go. There you go. It's all yours.
Go rip it.
Ahora. Así es.
Eso. There you go. We gotta go to the video. Sorry, y'all. Okay. We gotta take a break. And let's go to the video. Bye, Jay. Okay.
I danced my butt off that day. It was like I was releasing.
Yes.
Stress. Yes. Oh, that was fun. That's Bambayo from the Bronx, Puerto Rican dance troupe, Afro Puerto Rican dance troupe. We had so much fun. Bambayo. I love saying that name. I had a lot of fun. Well, back to Sister Talk TV show. Remember, y'all can call it 212-757-1393. Don't be scared of me. My stockings could call too. It's okay.
The haters too.
My haters, I will get Bambayo over here. Okay, Latino in the news. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. My God, that's a myth. You know, if you don't believe in God, God help you. I mean, that was really, she didn't expect that.
She went
Quite
from
an
like being a
upset.
bartender or
Yeah,
a waitress,
yeah.
server to, basically like taking over, man.
You know, when I did the solo show, I mentioned her and I said that if she can fulfill her dreams, anybody can. She's a big inspiration for me. I mean, can you imagine her going up those Bronx steps, the subway, talking to people, shaking their hands, and people in her community is saying, what are you doing? You know, the scourgers, the haters, but she just kept moving and moving.
Her signature on her email says her name, and it says Palante, which means, forward moving, basically, like onward, and she absolutely, she had, she's from the community, and she saw that there was a need, that our voices were not being heard. We weren't being represented properly. I mean, come on, like Crowley, he was not representing us. And so she saw that, and she took advantage and went out there and created a space for herself. She was like, there's no lanes for me, I'm gonna make my own lane, and she did it.
She, what I liked about her when I read some of her bios, you're talking about humble beginnings. Humble beginnings. I know her parents had to move to Florida because they couldn't afford to stay in New York any longer. I mean, I just thought it was amazing. I mean, under $200 million, no, under $200,000.
Individual
I think
donors,
Crawley did $3 million. I think at one of the debates, he didn't even show up.
He didn't show up. That's how dismissive he was.
He brought in a representative.
He's got, I got this in the bag, he thought.
Yeah, he thought.
But he's not going away. You know, he's still
challenging
her.
He still has his name on the ballot and stuff.
And he won't take it off.
And, and I mean, that's just privilege though, right? That's what privilege looks like. You know, somebody else won, and you feel that you are entitled to have your name on that ballot, even though you lost. Like, that is the definition of privilege, if you ask me.
And she won fair and square.
Yes, she did.
No Russian interference.
Nothing, just a platform.
Just
a platform built off of like common sense things that we need.
Yes. The Bronx girl. Go ahead.
And I think it's so important because it's like, she's talking to the people. It's not just a matter of like being a leader and saying I'm working for you, but you're not actually in the trenches, learning what people are interested in. Which I think is such a difference in terms of like really seeing these community builders who are going in there, building relationships and showing that they care about us and who we are, what we're interested in.
You know what's so amazing is that she ran under the platform, under the party Democratic Socialist.
Yeah.
That's interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that.
So socialist doesn't mean the same thing that people think it means. I think
There's a lot of stigma,
Yeah,
and
behind that.
people just associate it with the communist
Yes.
red era, Red Scare or era, and they don't understand that it's about knowing what is best for the community.
Working class people.
How can we build so that we all have equal opportunity
Yeah.
and on things that we all need as a community, healthcare, education,
yeah.
So do you all think that she's going to make it? I say that because of Crawley. I say that because of the party she's running on under
Yeah.
Democratic Socialists. I say that because now the sharks are coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm a DC girl. I say this all the time. I was born in a political town. And when Trump threw his hat in the ring, when he first announced, I said, man, you better get out now because you don't know what you're in for. And although he won, he still, it's too much. I think it's too much for him. He don't know what to do because he can't do what he does in business. Politics is a different breed.
I think that I think that people are tired. I think that this, first of all, the fact that Trump is president, I think it's pretty amazing, honestly. If you ask me, I don't want him to be impeached, because after him is the vice president, and I think that he's just like, a wolf in sheep's clothing. So I think let's keep this one there. At least he says what he's gonna do, and he's open about his racism and xenophobia and all that, right? So like, I need to be able to know that you're a racist, and you're telling me, so I'm good with that, right?
Right.
I think that people are tired, though, of what they've been going through, about what we've been going through, and I think that they do want their voice heard, right? And the new generations are voting now.
Yeah.
People are turning 18, and
Yeah.
they are going out, and they're gonna have their voices heard. So she has a really good chance.
And there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party and like what their goal is, and lately making everything about Trump. And that's the virtue that Alexandria had, was she didn't make her thing about Trump. It's about what the community needs.
Yeah, because you can't just like run on being against, 45. You just can't. You got to have a platform. You have to be able to, have an agenda that you're running on. And so, and I don't consider myself a Democrat or, Republican or anything. I feel like I am just. I think I consider myself a socialist pretty much. So I think that it's great that she has to, run on the Democratic ticket. But I think that the Democrats are just as horrible as the Republicans.
It's just high school politics, like just bashing on people and insulting.
Yeah.
Stooping down to their level.
And they're just as racist too. They don't. Yeah, they're just as racist. Look at how they threw Maxine Waters under the bus the minute she came out and spoke.
Really?
Like, come on, yeah.
Who is that woman who wrote the book? And she said the Democratic Party can all go to hell.
I heard about that.
I forgot her name, golly. Somebody out there knows. 212-757-1393. We did a whole show on her. She said they can go to hell.
Yeah.
So do y'all think Clinton could have done it better? I'm just digressing for 1 second.
I don't know. Honestly, I didn't like her either.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people that y'all all hate, that y'all was like, oh, you need to vote for Clinton. And I was like, nope, I'm not voting for either one of them. That's me. So, I think she was equally horrible. I think the thing is that even under Obama, I understand Obama was like a classy man and like, he really walked in integrity and all that stuff. Like, I don't take that from him, but he wasn't good for our community either. And people, they don't see that. They think that because he was black that we were just like, oh, Obama. No. There was more deportations under Obama than there were under any other presidency, under any other administration, and people don't understand that. So for us, when it comes down to Washington...
But wasn't that so because some of the people came here illegally? They didn't do the right thing? I'm not... I'm just being honest.
That is a contentious issue. People don't understand how difficult it is to come to America, especially for people south of the southern border.
Okay.
Right? There are visa backlogs that take decades. Okay? There are difficulties, and when people are escaping dangers, would you judge a domestic violence survivor from moving from one state to the other in the middle of the night with no money?
Explain that. Okay, here's one of the questions I meant to ask earlier. I'm glad you brought that up. Why are they coming here? What is the danger? No, seriously,
what we created in their countries. That's the danger.
Well, that's what people don't understand. The United States has been interfering in the politics of these nations for decades, okay? And they've created a destabilized political environment.
Example?
You have situations all throughout Central and South America where they have established dictators. You have, for example, in Guatemala, you had that whole genocide with President Rios Montt. There's a destabilizing that has targeted minorities within these nations. For example, the indigenous communities. And now what we're seeing is decades. Of genocidal politics in these nations that have resulted in systemic racism, systemic discrimination, lack of economic opportunities. And now when you add the deportations that occurred decades ago, when you add that with the rising of gang violence, and you have these vulnerable populations that simply, they don't want to be living in violence.
Okay. We have to take a video break. Get some water. No, take a video break. We'll be right back. Remember, you can chime in. I know y'all on your iPhones in Central Park looking at us. 212-757-1393. We will be right back. Bye.
I'm Latina. I mean, I'm not black. I mean, I'm like but I wouldn't identify as Afro Latina. Pacific Islander? Is Puerto Rico in the Pacific? Jesus Christ. Of course it's not. Get a grip, Christina. Wait, am I white? But if I'm white, then that would mean that I benefit from white privilege.
You're not the only Latina to have a tough time with this question. Having some privileges in life doesn't make you a bad person. But let's stop the clock on this test and answer a question that only gets tougher with time. Can Latinos benefit from white privilege? This is the cat call, and I'm calling this shit out. Let's set something straight. There is no standard Latino look. We come from different countries, different ethnic backgrounds, speak different languages, and heck, we'll even cook the same dish 1,000 different ways. In fact, the word Latino was originally defined by being from a certain region of the world, what the French first called Latin America. So even since the word was invented, it's encompassed people of European, Caribbean, African, and indigenous American heritage. So can Latinos benefit from white privilege? The short answer is yeah. Duh. For example, not only do light-skinned Latinos dominate being on TV, remember? But countries like Brazil and Cuba supported policies that actively whiten their population, and countries like Mexico deliberately ignored their Afro-Mexican population in the national census till 2015. But when it comes to Latinos living in the United States, the answer can get a little complicated. But let's start with, what does it mean to be white? I've met Latinos with skin whiter than Jorge Ramos' scalp. And that's because when European colonizers came to the Caribbean and Latin America, they brought their light eyes, pasty skin, and some weird-ass diseases. Many light-skinned Latinos today exhibit features that are, or sometimes pass as, white in the U.S. This means some Latinos do experience white privilege. White privilege doesn't mean you're automatically a bad person. It just means that you might not face certain obstacles because of the way you look. I know what it's like to be discriminated as a woman and as a Latina. And even though I've never passed as a white woman, I also know what it's like for people to privilege me based on my proximity to whiteness. Like this one time, my Afro-Puerto Rican friend was dating a white guy, and his family asked him why he couldn't date a Latina more like me. That's code for, we'd rather you not date someone who's black. And if that's something that we want to change, denying it isn't the answer. Acknowledging that white privilege exists and acknowledging the ways in which we benefit from it is the first step. That said, if there's anything that old people with shopping carts have shown us lately, sometimes the color of your skin isn't enough to make you white when you're speaking a different language.
Speak English, you're in America. Speak English, bitch. It's America. We speak English in America.
So it's tough because white Latinos can often benefit from the privileges of being white only to find out that they aren't white enough when a cultural identifier makes them stand out from non-Latino white Americans. Like when you're the only Ramirez in your kindergarten class, or you pick up your phone on your lunch break in Spanish, or you're the only one in your workplace who knows that Shakira hasn't always been blonde. But that doesn't mean that white or white-passing Latinos still don't engage in racist behavior towards dark-skinned or black Latinos.
Mira aquí, señor, mírala. Parece del elenco del planeta de los simios de la película.
These unchecked stereotypes are the reason why one neo-Nazi website recently decided to start publishing in Spanish, because they hope that racial division and white supremacy can continue thriving in Latin America. But newsflash, if arguing over which one of these is a limón hasn't divided us, nothing will. The truth is, almost
I know. Every time we order from the restaurant.
Yeah, that's the cat videos I keep picked up off of Facebook. It's a very, funny but very serious, real video and all that. But I do want to ask y'all this question, though. I want to ask you all, do Latinos, do they benefit from white privilege?
Of course.
Do they?
I think
really?
so. I think
I was surprised to say that. Hear you say yeah.
I mean, I think particularly as a Puerto Rican, we are a colony of the United States, and a lot of us have grown up in the United States, and those of who are more white passing and have no visible accent. I mean, no one could tell them apart. And even in Puerto Rico, of course, there's racism. I mean, it does happen.
I mean, I think it's also like you just hearing how people will speak about like the different skin tones. Where if you're lighter skinned, it's like, oh, look how fair skinned she is. It's so nice. And then you hear, the way they may speak about someone who's like darker skinned. Like you could definitely realize that there's a big issue in terms of like colorism.
So it sounds like our community. Do you all think it's going to be like a Wakanda going on? A movie, a Black Panther, a Latina Panther? Call me now, right? 212-757-1393.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't like to be separated from just like for example, Black Panther was like our movie, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't like to separate myself, and I think that's where the issue lies, is that we separate ourselves from our Latina or Latinx or from African Americans. Like we are all just like we're all of the same like lineage, and so. The minute that we start just like identifying ourselves as just like we are all part of like, the Latino community, then, or African American, I think we're both, one and the same. I just don't think that we should be separated. So for me, Wakanda was for us. All of
I want to ask you all, is we have a call. Okay. Caller, you watching Sistah Talk. What do you have to say? What's your name? Hi. Hi, caller. Turn your TV down real quick.
Hi, my name is Jessica.
Jessica, turn your TV down. We don't have enough time, so. Oh, did y'all cut it off? Call back, Jessica. Call back. Sorry. Well, I want to ask you all, are the Latinas the new major minority? And, quote, I hate that word, but that's what they're saying. Are Latinos the new major minorities in America?
I mean, I think that Latinos are around 19% of the general population in the United States.
What, 90%?
19?
19.
That's a significant amount. It's a non-negligible amount.
Right.
We are part of this community.
And we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Another question. Okay, I digress one moment. I did a road trip when I was trying to be an actor in LA. I drove my 73 beat up car all the way to LA, and I just was mesmerized by the country. I mean, and I knew back then, this is not white America.
Yeah.
I knew back then it wasn't. Texas is another thing. Even Texas, it wasn't white. They told me not to go to a certain place in Texas. But that's another story. Let's talk about the Latino and African American community. Now, I hear that Latinos don't like African Americans. But I don't think so. I try to get along with everybody. But is that am I going too
we've come
deep?
a long way, but
but
as I said, in my own family, right? Like my father was one that was just not fond of African American people, and so it does happen in our community and in our family. I think the older generation of the Latinos are just like, they're very set in their ways, and they felt like the light skin was just like the best, of the two. But as time has gone on, I feel like, we have definitely come a long way. However, people still are surprised whenever they hear me speak Spanish, right? And I'm amongst Spanish people. And so for me, that still shows us that we have still a long way to go.
Yeah. I think it really depends on who you look at. Like the younger generation is definitely embracing much more of that kind of different races or different racial background. But it definitely is with the older generation where you'll see a lot of that kind of still prevalent, especially with even millennials who have still kind of grew up in that time when there was still racial tension.
But that's what they learned from white people, to be self-disparaging.
Yeah.
And right now they're in the position where they're starting to acknowledge, wait, this is me, and why was I listening to all that nonsense?
So you all do see a future, not just with but between the Latin and African American community. Yeah, but just Black people, the whole diaspora period.
Exactly, the whole diaspora.
I think it needs to start really with ourselves, though. I agree that I don't think that we should be separated, but I feel that because we've been under a society where we're so entrenched to think that European standards or there's white supremacy, I think there's a really we have to learn how to first take pride in our own culture and our own background first before we can all come together. So it's really I think Wakanda's that first step, where it's yes, that's me, and then we can take that step and be that's you, and we can really bridge whatever differences there are, because we can notice how many similarities we have.
How can one get in contact with you all if somebody's looking and wants to? Sorry, Jessica. How can they get in contact with you?
So I'm online, DronellGeraldo.com, and also on social media as Dronell Geraldo.
I think you can log on to the Bronx Defenders website and access us. Visit our office in 160
East 161st. Yeah, same thing. Bronx Defenders website.
Okay. You all remember the movie Warriors before the gang leader got shot? He just said everybody come together. He said instead of being like this, you gotta be like that. I'm just gonna end it like that. I know that. I know I got 30 seconds, okay? We're gonna be like this. This time we'll end the show. Okay, this is Deetra, host of Sistah Talk TV show. Thank you for watching Sistah Talk TV show. Big ups for the crew and the creator, Zaki Z Starman. As always, I am wishing you peace, love, and remember to stay in the light. Sistah Talk.